Many months ago, I set out with the goal of finding the most unbelievable, impossible-looking view in all of the Rocky Mountains on Google Earth. The Rockies are one of the largest mountain chains on the planet, so I figured just from simple chance there must be a point within them that yielded a view so spectacular it would seem to defy reality. After several weeks of searching, I happened upon this peak. While the peak itself isn't very impressive and seems no different than the thousands of other surrounding mountains, the view from it is unlike anything else I have ever seen. This is because of its perfect placement in relation to this foreboding mountain. From the top of our small peak, this mountain would seem to cut through the sky like a knife, its great flat face shooting up and ending so abruptly. Our peak just happens to be perfectly in line with this sharp ridge, which is going to give the foreboding mountain the appearance of a jagged pyramid at this angle. Not only that, but from the summit you can also see a farther mountain, which is made up of large, absurdly flat slabs of stone. My assumption was confirmed when I dropped into a blurry Google Earth photosphere of a past hiker on the summit. This is simply unreal. I knew I had to get here for myself. There was only one problem, though. When Martha and I started our trip to the Canadian Rockies, this entire region was forbidden to visit, closed off to people due to extremely high levels of grizzly bear activity in the valley. Then, on our last day in Canada, I checked and saw that the trail had been opened again. There had been bears on the trail just the day prior, but the park agency had deemed it just safe enough to open up again. We rushed over to the trailhead immediately, grateful at our chance to reach this insane summit, despite the awful weather forecast for the next day. In this video, I will show you the difficult journey to the most impossible view I have seen in my entire life. Welcome to Alberta, Canada. And as you can see, we already have some wild peaks right up behind us. And this is just the start of the hike. It's only gonna get better and better and better. We have about 5 miles to go, 3,000 feet to gain to reach a point where you just get the most insane view I've ever seen in a picture. From experience, usually the picture is never as good as it is in person. And this picture just blows me away. So I can't imagine what it's like in person. The main thing we have to worry about today is grizzly bears. This hike was actually closed for several weeks just before today, and it just recently got reopened, but there are still bears in the area. We are walking through fields of berry bushes right now, so just yesterday 2 grizzlies were spotted. Definitely not ideal, which is why we have to stay loud, very loud.
Loud and proud!
Loud and proud. We have done one hike so far in Canada that was probably as high in grizzly bear activity as this area. We didn't see anything there, just a ton of tracks and scat. We just gotta keep our eyes peeled basically. Stay loud. We know the protocol for grizzly bears, and that's what's most important. Seeing a grizzly bear from afar would be super cool. I've really wanted to see one, just not encounter one up close, you know? Coming through, get away bears, go find a different spot. It's a nice brushy corner. Coming around the corner, here we are. Nobody there? Trail has gotten quite muddy. We didn't bring our hiking poles this time around because most of the trail is actually quite flat. And that was a big mistake. Here's some morning sun hitting the mountains though. Great walls of limestone, steeply uplifted. So there's a big river meander here, and I think a beaver has plugged it up somewhere because the trail goes right into this very still pond, you know. That's a little unfortunate, but at least the reflection is amazing. I love water reflections of peaks. So far in Canada, all the trails we've been on have been super well maintained. Just bridges everywhere, no fallen trees, very wide open trails. But this is not the case for this one. And honestly, I'm not complaining too much because after all of those super nice trails, it's kind of fun to go through these, I don't know, more rugged ones. They're a little bit more authentic in a way. This is at least a little bit closer to what really trekking through true wilderness would be like. So we have a very interesting geological formation right up next to us here. And what that is extremely tilted limestone. Sedimentary rocks are laid down in flat layers that are horizontal, right? Because that's how gravity works. It just simply can't be any other way. So all sedimentary rocks start horizontal. But when you get mountain building events, a lot of uplift and stuff like that, you can get some crazy folds and some crazy vertical layers, which is what we have here. Those are sedimentary rock layers that started flat like this, and now they are pointed like this. Which means there were some crazy forces at play, namely tectonic plates smashing together, which has now caused this vertical uplift. And I love when sedimentary layers get shoved vertical like that, because when that happens, they erode in such a cool way. Let's jump into Google Earth real quick so we can get some more context for what we're looking at here. So we started down here and we've walked up this trail through some pretty scary grizzly habitat, though nothing so far. And now we've cut up to the right and we've entered this glacial valley here. This is the mountain that I just looked at with some of the steeply uplifted layers. And the reason I mentioned those is because those layers are the reason for why we have such strange mountains up here. So if we go look at the ridge of the mountain that we are trying to get a view of, we can actually zoom in and see that the layers here are almost vertical, like that other mountain over there. And that's the reason for this sharp ridge. On this side, you can see all of the layers have been cut. And on the outside here, you just have the base of the outer layer, pretty much. So if you imagine you have a bunch of layers and you uplift them at an angle, one side is going to be jagged and one is going to be almost perfectly flat. Here's my best visual representation of this. First, we have a bunch of flat sedimentary layers that are starting in their normal horizontal position, and then they get pushed up and uplifted at about a 45-degree angle here, and erosion erodes at both sides, but on the perpendicular side, it's very rough, and then on the parallel side to those layers, it doesn't really do much, and you just get a huge flat slab of rock. And with this mountain, we just have a textbook example of that, which is probably why it's so cool. Additionally, if we go over to this mountain out here, it actually follows that same pattern, except in this case, the slabs of stone are even larger and more pronounced. And I've actually seen something like this before in another Rocky Mountain range in Idaho, but in this case, there's glaciers sitting on top of it, so it's a little bit different. One of the other things you get are really spiky ridges when some of these layers are weaker than the other. That isn't really happening on our mountain here, but it is happening in other places nearby. Basically, near vertical sedimentary rock creates a lot of formations that would be impossible in any other scenario. Anyway, let's head back to the trail and see if we can get through this valley, because if we can, I'm pretty sure the grizzly danger will go down as soon as we get up on the bare rock. Got the first glaciers of the day up there. Probably will be gone quite soon here within my lifetime, but at least there's still a little bit of them left there. You can see some more of those crazy folds of the layers I was talking about. There's some dip going this way, and then all of a sudden it switches to this way right there, and then back to this way. Just really mashed up there. So you may be wondering, why are the layers tilted like this? What created these mountains? I'll do a quick geologic explanation so we're all on the same page. Basically, Rocky Mountain geology is immensely complicated, and it's not simple like many of the other ranges on Earth, like the Himalayas or the Cascades. Geologists still argue to this day about what exactly formed the Rockies and how it happened. What I do know is that the mountains in the Canadian Rockies are the result of thrust faults. This is when compressional forces from an ancient convergent plate boundary fractured the basement rock at very low angles, and then shoved these layers on top of each other, using the faults as a sort of ramp. This occurred during a mountain building event over 55 million years ago. These faults vary in angle, but some can result in the layers being quite tilted at the end, just like our mountains here. Additionally, these compressional forces can deform the rock, creating some of the wacky folds we've seen in the rock today. That is why we have many parallel lines of mountains here in the Canadian Rockies. They're all following those great thrust faults. I will link a lecture on the formation of the Rockies in the description if you're wanting to learn more. Now, they're not rising anymore. The Rocky Mountains are gradually getting eroded away by glaciers and streams. And eventually, in millions more years, they'll just be wee itty bitty hills. We are lucky enough to live in an era where the Rocky Mountains haven't been eroded yet, and thus they are still quite beautiful. It has officially gotten incredibly steep. The funny thing about this hike is if you look at the elevation profile, it's very flat for the first 3 or 4 miles, and then all of the elevation gain happens incredibly quickly right at the end. I think the total elevation gain is 3,000 feet, which for a day hike for us, that's not bad at all. But when you smash that all into the last 2 miles of a hike, oh, it is rough, that's for sure. We can see more of those steeply tilted layers here. And wow, it's gorgeous. And they're making these really cool, really flat walls. We made it to the lakes. We decided we're feeling so good. This mountain air is so refreshing that we're just gonna keep going. We can now actually see our final destination too. That's the peak we want to summit. So we're gonna get up to this ridge here and then just scramble up. I love the color combos out here. Each mountain range is unique because of the rocks and the plants. And in this case, we have this amazing slate gray with the beautiful mossy green and blue of the lake. Okay, we are kind of at the base of the ridge, just out of the wind. It is horribly windy, and hiking up to the peak is gonna suck with the wind. The lighting is not perfect right now for the peak, but in about an hour or two it will be. So if we take our time, take a good break here, and then do the ridge, the lighting should be at least pretty good. It won't be perfect, but it'll be pretty good up there at the summit, because we wanna see that peak back there at least a little bit more in the sun, because right now it's in full shade. All right, I want to look at Google Earth one last time just to give you some final context, especially now that I have the trail file in here. So we made it through the valley and we began our ascent up this very, very steep slope, and you can actually see the trail across the scree here. And this is where we were right next to those layers, and it was really cool to see them up close. And then we got over this ridge, and it got incredibly, incredibly windy. The wind is kind of just getting funneled around in here. I think it's like coming over this ridge, going around this corner, and flying out this way or something like that, because it was so strong. both here and here. But you can see this little depression here where the lakes are is where one of those softer layers are that I mentioned. And then we have the flat backed layer that is making up all of these peaks. It just kind of stays pretty consistent, and we can just go in a straight line and it follows all these mountains. But now we are sitting here sheltering by these trees here, and the final ascent is not going to be easy. We're going to have to go up this ridge line here, and then this part here, from what I can tell, is going to be the sketchiest part. It's not going to be too bad, but probably class 2 or 3 scrambling, so definitely no joke, and it's going to be difficult. So hopefully you can really picture where we are as I show you the footage. Okay, we waited about an hour for the sun to move, and it did not pay off. Now there are some massive storm clouds incoming, so that's pretty unfortunate. We're just gonna go try to get up on the peak. We'll see if we even make it at this point, because the wind is gonna be ripping. Who knows? At the very least, this was by far the biggest bucket list place for me to come to in Canada. I don't know about Martha, but I know she was still pretty excited for this hike. So, you know, if it's not perfect today, just have to come back. And this is the Canadian Rockies for you. And any tall mountain ranges, just the weather is very unpredictable. It said sun today, and well, it's probably gonna rain on us, so we'll just see what it's like up there. Okay, the wind hasn't hit in full force yet. It's just beginning to rain, and look past the ridge. We have a menacing storm coming, so we gotta be quick. That's rough. That is really what I wanted to see that way, and that's pretty. Has begun to rain. There's no close by lightning though, so as long as we can put up with the temperature and the water, then we can keep going. Okay, we're kind of sitting behind this rock ledge to get sheltered from the worst of the wind and the rain. Still raining a little bit on us, but not bad. And we're just watching it come down in sheets on the mountains over here. So there is some lightning now, occasionally, but it's off to the right and left of us, and we're already up on this ridge, exposed.
Well, that didn't sound great.
Yeah, so I think our best option is just to sit here and wait it out. And we're below the ridge, we're down low, we're not below next to any trees or anything, and there's light sky. I just checked behind us, there's light sky back there, so I think if we just give it 20 minutes, we'll probably be fine. Because if you look at the valley now, the valley's super dark, because I think that was the worst of the storm. It's now hitting over there. But even just behind me, you can see the clouds are much lighter. Okay, the rain has stopped, lightning has passed, and we're gonna keep going. See what happens. Here's the other way where the storm was coming from. It's clear now. I haven't worn shorts on a single hike this entire trip until today. Big mistake. pretty sure these are avalanche pathways where an avalanche just demolished a whole swath of trees. So look at this pointy horn over here. That's wild. I gotta stop looking. I gotta save it. We've decided, since you can already see so well from this ridge, we're gonna stop spoiling the view and not look back until we reach the summit. A little class 2 or 3 scramble, nothing crazy. This is it. Bucket list. True summit right here. Woo! On today's episode of easily 1,000-foot drop. You know, the rain really helps making the layers very visible for us. That's awesome. Oh, okay. Let me get out the good camera. Let's go, Martha. Well, definitely not a bluebird day, but that is still the most insane thing I've ever seen. And I'm, again, no hyperbole here. That is the best thing I've ever seen. Here's a vertical just so you guys can see the full thing. It doesn't fit in my landscape frame. That's how imposing this mountain is in front of us, which is ridiculous too because we're on top of another mountain. So yeah, the prominence is insane. Wow. And that's not even good lighting. I can't imagine the evening on a sunny day. And then over here, just massive slabs of stone. Ridiculous. And again, all because of that steeply tilted limestone is why we have these really, really cool shapes. Since it was so windy on top of the peak and all my footage was pretty shaky and awful, I just wanted to include some of my best photos that I got with a little bit of extra editing to really bring out the contrast and the colors because the light was not great that day. The flat clouds just really made it a blanket gray out there and it was hard to see the green. In these photos, you can really see the contrast, and I especially wanted to highlight this one here where I zoomed in on those giant slabs on the faraway mountain. I really, really want to go hike over there the next time I'm in this area, because now that I've seen the pyramid peak, I want to go see the giant slabs of stone up close. And that will be a future trip, hopefully in, I don't know, the next 2 years or so. And I just want to also point out that these photos do not hold a candle to some of the others that professional photographers have gotten here, but they are my best effort. Okay, we just started to head down. So sad. But there's a tiny, tiny patch of clear sky above us. So I'm hoping it hits the mountain and the lakes, at least just for a second. I mean, it's already pretty lit up. That's already fantastic. But if it got a tiny bit of direct sun, that'd be even better. Okay, we officially made it back to the car, and it is time for us to leave Canada. Probably make it across the border tonight, we'll see. But man, that was insane. I don't know how I'm gonna ever top that hike. Hopefully we can sometime, but for now that's gonna remain number one for quite a bit. Anyway, we're out at the edge of the range, and there's just a beautiful valley with the mountains off in the distance. That's the peak we were looking at earlier, the really cool one. And then of course many others. And make sure to let me know if you guys enjoyed these Canada videos, because I had the time of my life up here and I would really love to come back. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.